Thursdays are better than Tuesdays.
Ooh.
I don't. Tuesdays are the least fun. All right, so yesterday we were taking a look at Shiflet with Life You Save, maybe your own. I think we were talking about all the terrible things that Shiflet does, and then Lindsay was coming up with her good list of stuff that at least you could associate with him, whether or not, actually what he does. Does he perform miracles? With the whole saying a bird, I guess that could be a little arbitrary or whatnot. But there's definitely kind of a balance that goes on with him where, yes, you certainly have some positive qualities, or what seems to be positive qualities, raising the car from the dead. His whole discussions about body and spirit, making him a carpenter, where you kind of have, this miracle, maybe Christ illusion thing taking place. Did mention the word over here that goes along with cross. So when he puts up the good arm and the bad arm up to the sun, forms a crooked cross. Not only certainly could you say alliteration, but based on the connotations of those two words, I think that's a pretty good example of J-term. Juxtaposition, because think of the connotation. Crooked, kind of criminal, certainly not wholesome. And then, cross, something that does tend to have a little bit more reverence with it. So the juxtaposition of this really kind of accentuates what Shiflet does. He kind of goes back and forth between the two things. Helps out Lucille Crater, helps her speak, communicate, and then at the same time basically steals her innocence and takes her away for $17.50, and whatnot. We were talking about his name with shift being shifty, where it kind of fits in as a sense of being a con man. Also, that whole idea of shifty, or that shifting back and forth, where you do have positive qualities about him, or the potential for positive qualities, but then also over here, certainly some negative, evil kind of elements would be existing with him. Any thoughts then on why? Or what's this do? Or any other, does Lucille Crater, the mother, have maybe some positive characteristics, or also equally bad ones? Where do we get a sense for where in the world OConnor's trying to go with this? Throughout the restaurant.
I feel like the short story, they're either humans or they have the big twist in the water. But this has none of the above, and so I was just confused after I read it. I was like, okay, something happened, and then it ended.
Well, twist was.
She as author, not like she with any of the characters or whatnot. And I know I mentioned this ninth period. I don't think I said this yesterday, but you can be like, yes, we already talked about this. She uses in a lot of her stories ambiguity. And if you say something's ambiguous, like you turn in TWA, you turn in Siddhartha TWA, I give comment back, well, you're getting kind of ambiguous within this paragraph. You kind of take that as a negative connotation, criticism, probably the vague, not enough detail, and not enough support. Your feelings are kind of ambiguous with it. But ambiguity, it's in your course syllabus. It was one of those literary devices that we did for the weekly quizzes, way back when Kobe was happy about grades. Ambiguity, ambi, two options. At least, certainly could be multiple, where she has a lot of ambiguity that she embeds in her stories. The other one, A Good Man is Hard to Find, certainly is going to have it as well, where she tends to have multiple arguments that you can support. And she's, with interviews, since she's passed away, she was always pretty cryptic with as to, all right, so what's the point? Where are you going with this? Ms. OConnor, what's the purpose of your short story? Well, you should read it and find out. Kind of thing would be her answer. She does, and I know we said this before, she does tend to satirize and criticize aspects of humanity, certainly those flaws of humanity. No, you don't usually get necessarily a happy ending, knowing that a rhetorical analysis essay will be coming down your way, these might be two purposes that you want to keep in mind. What are devices that she's using to satirize and criticize aspects of humanity, and what are those aspects of humanity that she would be looking at? So with Shiflet, he's a very ambiguous character because you have this movement kind of going back and forth. I think one of the scenes that folks kind of aren't sure how to read would be the hitchhiker scene. He leaves Lucille at the diner, driving along. How do we get our title to the story? Yeah, like if you're on the turnpike, slow down, people at work, the life you save, maybe your own kind of thing. But yes, he's the safe driving sign. He's always wanted the automobile. It's something that he's been certainly yearning for, and I can't explain why, but it seems like for some reason, since he's in the automobile now, that he has it, he feels like there is some kind of sense of responsibility now to do something good. Why you feel that after you left the girl at the diner would be beyond me. If you want to do something good, don't leave her at the diner. If you want to do something good, don't, marry her for $17.50 in a car, I guess you could also argue. But leaves her at the diner, takes up the hitchhiker. Conversation kind of unfolds where Shiflet starts to get, kind of sentimental about mother and all that kind of stuff, and all of a sudden you got the little kid cussing him out and he jumps out the car. But why? Maybe the answer? No, because not why not. Possibility, boy realizes the hypocrisy of it. Boy realizes, why did I get in a car with a stranger? Boy realizes that he has a smile like a snake, but you kind of get a description of before, maybe this guy isn't good. But he figures out something about Shiflet that makes him want to leave. Maybe recognizes the hypocrisy of him, pretending to be a good person, and then ends up doesn't. What does he drive into then at the end of the book? Or not a book, but end of the story?
The cloud, like the storm.
You got this it's a weird description. So you get this great turnip cloud, and people don't usually use turnips as a way to describe clouds. But you have a very ominous ending that is taking place. Kind of like how Shiflet himself is a juxtaposition. It juxtaposes the beginning of the story where you got this beautiful sunset, where he's doing a crooked cross kind of pose and whatnot. Feel free absolutely to take a look in the story itself. What are his closing lines when he's coming into the storm? Probably going to be page 8.
O Lord, break forth and wash the slime from the earth.
Okay. Slide this stuff down. Break forth and wash this slime from the earth. A term. What's he doing? Not illusion, not ambiguity. Who's he talking to? It's apostrophe. Okay, so we got a form here of apostrophic speech. Apostrophe. You could even, in the more specific term, anyone remember the I term that would go along? It's a form of apostrophe. You're speaking to a deity, some kind of religious figure. You can also go with the term invocation. What does he mean, or what would be possible meanings for break forth and wash the slime from the earth as he's driving in his automobile to this cloud storm?
I mean, if he's referring to himself as the slime, he could be saying, kill me already.
Okay, so if he is the slime, yeah, get it over with, kill me, eradicate me, whatever the case may be. Yep. Any others? I think you could even say maybe that he, if he is the slime, yeah, get it over with. You could kind of argue that maybe he's not the slime, but he realizes that he is kind of There's a difference between being slimy and being the slime. If you're slimy, you're
Like, it's just, I don't know.
Like it's
dirty. Yeah,
you
dirty
want to
character.
be purified.
Oh, like, kind of what Kevin said, like, he just wants to be like, safe.
Okay, so we got an option now, and again, this goes back to the whole ambiguity. Are we dealing with a kill me, or are we dealing with a save me? Which, you know, hey, you're going into the storm, wash this slime. If it's the save me, if it's the redeem me, then yeah, certainly, you know, some holy water kind of ideas could start to take place within a reader's
Well, I
mind.
think slimy is like an adjective, and slime's a noun. So he could be slimy, but he wants like the slime out of the world.
Right. So this would be like literally wash me, cleanse me,
Yeah.
save me, redeem me, baptize me if you want to go with that word. Or yeah, I'm everything that is wrong with the world. I stole the car. My goodness, I'm a terrible person. I left the poor girl at the diner at the hot spot. Boy, that wasn't a good idea. Get it over with. So which one is it? I can't tell you. But that's where purposely you kind of have this ambiguity idea. Why? What is the big deal then? Why make a big point about at least highlighting, illustrating the potential that a person could literally shift back and forth? I mean, you know, we said a couple days ago, there's no one who is purely good, there's no one who's purely evil. Allie must have some faults. Justin apparently has some redeeming qualities.
His cat,
Something.
his
Slime
cat's
beats
being quality.
Well, then what does that say about us? Depends what your balance is, I guess. Could be good, could not be good. O'Connor's history would say she tends to be a little bit more critical. You know, snap out of it, Kobe. You don't realize what you're doing. You need to do something. You need to kind of fix it. If you take someone as dirty, rotten scoundrel as Shiflet, but you still kind of make, hey, he can raise the dead. He's a carpenter. He does miracles. Teaches her to speak. Wow, amazing. Well, then there's still the potential in him for to do something worthwhile. But what does he have to do? He actually has to do it. You're not naturally just going to be good. At the same time, you could be someone who does all the appropriate things. You know, you open the door for others. You do all your homework. You don't copy your homework. You don't let people copy your homework at the lunch table. I just been stealing homework lately at the lunch table from kids, especially in CHS statistics. That class. But even if you stay away from those vices. What do you have to be on guard for? Don't fall. So the criticism, you know, certainly could be an angle where take a look at that people maybe don't realize that their life is in the balance necessarily all the time. I think you could also take a look at this and go, things do balance out. There is a balance, there is an equilibrium in the world that if you are going to certainly have a lot of things on one side, you're going to have some negative qualities as well. I think you could even take a look at someone like Lucy Nell as the mother. Probably one of the more unusual twists to it would be that you have Lucy Nell, we said squared, where you have mother and daughter. They do kind of balance one another out in some ways. The mother has some physical deficiencies about her, you know, old in age, teeth are pretty much falling out. You have the daughter, where she is certainly fully intact, but when it comes to mental capabilities, you know, not quite there. So both of them have voids, have some kind of emptiness about them that needs to be fulfilled.
I think like going with Lucy Nell, the mother, is also like an influence on Mr. Shiflet. Like,
What do you? I keep going.
Like she basically gave everything right to him.
Oh sure.
Like,
Yeah.
I just think that also.
Well, and certainly like some folks will read it bad guy victim. You Noel, I think you were the one who said horrible person for mother. You know, I wouldn't give up my daughter for a casket of jewels. Here's your car. Here's your $17.50. Okay, you can take her. Does mom know that she's not going to come back? that's even kind of hit and miss. The way that she looks at her, talks to her before they drive off, you get the sense that she has an idea that this is the last time that she's going to see her. In some ways, you know, you could argue that is Shiflet, I don't mean this to sound that he's innocent of anything, but she could be using him as essentially her victim. What's Mother's life like now? My steps are fixed. I got hog pens better. Got a roof over the garden house. That junk of a car that was in my yard before, it's not there. That eyesore's gone. I got a nice house. I have one less mouth to feed. I don't have to worry about her. Life's okay. Yay for me. And all it cost me was $17.50 and some paint for the car. So in some ways, certainly he ends up having to take the burden off her shoulders. Oh, what a savior-like thing of him to do, take a burden from her. But again, does she realize that she's going to be left at the diner? Who knows with that one? But I think, we'll get to you here in a second. I think O'Connor wants you to read a story and feel uncomfortable with it. And not having a happy ending, not having closure, not having some kind of finality, that kind of makes people uncomfortable with, well, what in the world just happened?
I get the feeling that Laura did on purpose, like she knew exactly what she was doing. Like she just didn't want to deal with the burden of living to save her daughter anymore. She was just like, here's my opportunity to get rid of her.
Yeah. The whole idea about, ravenous for a son-in-law, that she, when Shiflet does the whole crooked cross thing, I would pay $1 million to get to look at that all the time. Stay here, you can see it every night. Why don't you teach her to say sugar pie? There's all that leading stuff into this might work. Plus also, why make her sound to be 15, 16 years old? She's younger. There's more innocence to her. Try to sweeten the deal somewhat a little bit. I don't know, and I can't say for certainty that she's hoping that Shiflet will stay there. At least then it won't be her problem as much. But I would agree with you that she at least, if she doesn't think it's going to happen, she's got to be aware of the possibility. Otherwise, why are you going to give them the $17.50 to even go in the hotel in the first place? Be like, drop me off someplace, you guys stay here. But no, I kind of feel like, the burden's gone. I don't have to worry about it.
The thing that made me think that first was the fact that she said like, oh, that's the first time anybody bothered to teach her how to say anything. But like, she's been in your home for 30 years.
30 years.
Like you never taught her to say anything. Like she didn't care.
What kind of, and not to say that just the use of this word would therefore mean that she has bad intentions. I wouldn't trade her for a casket of jewels. I mean, treasure of jewels, spoonful of jewels. I've never heard someone go a casket of something as the container which would hold all of this stuff. So there's certainly kind of like that negative connotation that would kind of go along with it. Which again, those seeds of evil could be in absolutely anyone, whether you're a con man, whether you're a mother. And who ends up being the victim? Someone who is innocent and certainly can't kind of defend for herself. Fortunately, we have another story.
With no victims.
Is
Oh,
it
wait.
really
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh.
What'd you say for the victims?
With no victims. Oh, wait.
Except for
You're a
Oh,
good man.
that whole family.
No lives.
You're a good man, Charlie.
We've had an accident.
And remember the plan here so far is scheduled. We'll talk about stuff with good man that's hard to find. This will carry over into tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to kind of take a look at, all right, for essay assignment, where are we kind of going with this? So we'll be coming back to some ideas that could go in with the Life You Save Maybe. It's not that one's completely off the books. I think I said this yesterday, but if not, reinforce it. Certainly there could be some thematic similarities between the two stories, but we're not doing the Shiflet, it's the misfit, and okay, they're all the same people. No, two totally separate stories. Yes, published same time, taking place in the South, kind of weird and creepy, but the character involvement isn't, meant to be the same by any means. Grandmother tends to be, I think, the most polarizing character in this one, where some folks love her, some folks don't. I figured you were going to shake your head no. Most people do, but every now and then I'll get runs where, oh, grandma's just.
I feel like Sean.
I thought you were going to say sweet, and you were going to be that person. But you went to sweet, but
She's really stupid.
I feel
You're a
like
good
Sean
man.
was that
He
way.
has a gun.
Stay low. God, you got your whole family killed.
what's wrong with grandmother?
So much. She's an old person and an ignorant old person. Like, she's just ignorant.
What do you mean?
Like,
You said she is.
yeah.
Okay.
She just like says all the wrong things. Like at the wrong
You're the misfit!
Yeah.
He's like, you're the misfit.
Why-
Well,
she's such like she just got her whole family killed. Like she's such an idiot. I can see it. Like whenever I say don't say, I'll say like don't say. You go, who's behind me?
What else? That was not a good move. And
Nothing.
And certainly, you know, folks could go that she is absent-minded because she gets confused when it comes to the state for the House, Tennessee, Georgia. It was her fault for bringing the cat along in pity sing.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. What makes you think you're gonna bring a cat to Florida? Like, what? Breaks a cat in the basket in Florida and then just hide it from the rest of your family?
People take the pets.
Why would you hide your cat from the rest of your family? I think she was confused. I think she was
or you know,
I don't like
hey,
grandma.
hey kids, let's not go to the scary house. Oh, it's fine. Let's go to the scary house.
She just completely made stuff up about the house so that the kids would start a tantrum. So that the kids would look like they really wanted to go even though. So she's a snake.
And then she forgot that she wasn't even in the right place to find the house.
And yet she knew exactly where to turn off even though it wasn't even there. Like it's not a
Yeah, so how'd she even know where to turn off if she was making
For
it up?
okay.
she's a manipulative snake.
Everybody chill about old grandma here. And now she's dead.
Everybody.
Everybody chill.
Oh, my mother does the same thing,
Yeah.
which would basically be the age of your grandma,
Does your
probably.
grandmother causing fight?
What? Okay. For grandmother, and the intention of the trip, that could kind of go into with two things. Number one, keep in mind, grandma doesn't want to go at all. You know, there's a criminal on the loose. No, we shouldn't be going anywhere. Where you kind of get the sense at that point, they're probably going to run into that criminal.
Yeah.
You know, which kind of becomes pretty self-evident. The whole point of the little side trip, you know, to the house in Tennessee/Georgia, there certainly seems to be some angstiness, I guess, within the family dynamic, where the kids come across as being rotten brats, you know, whether it's John Wesley or June Starr. And we'll kind of keep that in mind because he does, or not she does some things with names. You know, we were mentioning about Crater and Shiflett. I think with June Starr, you know, kind of being the star, John Wesley, I think there's an angle to that, which we'll get into here in a little bit. But there certainly seems to be some divide between Bailey and Mother, don't always seem to get along. The wife is unnamed, so that seems to make her of like a lesser status within the family dynamic. And the way the kids treat basically everybody. So in some ways you could go, by doing the trip, grandma's getting the kids all excited and riled up. By getting them riled up is probably making her son miserable on this trip that grandma didn't want to go to in the first place. Is that all some kind of evil intent in her mind? I don't know if she has this big diabolical plan to let's completely ruin the vacation, but at the same time, I do think that, hey, it's a way, I don't want to be on this trip. I don't want to be on this trip. Let's kind of, you know, make some things a little bit different. And I'm not trying to use this as an escape clause, and probably tomorrow is where we're going to come to this scene some more. This is where that whole ambiguity thing comes in. And probably some of it depends upon your original view of the grandmother as to what she's trying to do. If you find her to lack redeeming qualities, then while her family is literally getting shot to death in the woods, it seems that she is grasping at whatever straw she can to stay alive. I do think that's a point where she is, and by all means you would expect this to happen, she's in total shock. No, the misfit is not one of her babies. You're my long-lost son. Why are you trying to kill your family? That's not happening. A detail, and I'm sure many of you picked up on it, some of you maybe didn't. When the misfit gets out of the hearse, when the misfit gets out of the hearse, what's he wearing? Besides pants, nothing. He doesn't have a shirt. When that scene's taking place, what is he wearing? Bailey's shirt. They bring the shirt back from shooting him, so it's possible in a moment of shock, Justin, where she's like, well, it's Bailey, kind of in her mind. So it could be that part going hysterical. It's not uncommon that folks, there's really two other main arguments. Some people feel that she is a despicable person who will do whatever she can to save herself, and the misfit actually saves her by putting her out of her misery 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. You also will get readers who will go, at this last moment, and you're thinking of the last quote by the misfit, she would have been a good woman if someone was there to shoot her every minute of her life. But in that final moment, she gets clarity and she tries to communicate grace and redemption to the misfit. And by going, you're one of my babies, you're a human being like me, you can be saved just like me, and it's a moment of like charity that's taking place. I tend to go more on the other side a little bit, that she's trying to do whatever she can to save herself. I do think, and with stuff that she says before that, I do think when she says, you're one of my babies, that she actually does have a moment of clarity. And it could be one of those things where you see your whole life shine before your eyes and you go, oh. She is, and a lot of this is part of her environment. She certainly has some racist beliefs, based on the story that she's telling and, picking up the little boy that's along the trip. When they stop for lunch at the barbecue place, I don't think she comes off very well in that scene whatsoever. What do her and Red Sammy and Mrs. Red Sammy talk about? In part of context of,
Like, the world is going downhill, but it's
like Kobe's grade, the world is like plummeting into a sense of nothingness. So
Just had to go there. Cut me deep.
now the world is going downhill, civilization is going downhill. But what are we? And by we, meaning Grandma, Red Sammy's wife. World's going downhill. People aren't nice like they used to be.
We're okay.
We're okay. If it were like the good old days, things would be okay. Now, and you're getting the influx of the influence from Europe and whatnot, people aren't as good as they used to be. And when someone says that, what are they really saying? Students just aren't like how they used to be.
they're bad.
It's not saying that they're bad, it's saying, if I say it, I'm saying,
I'm good.
you're not as good as I was.
Yeah.
I'm better. Keep that in mind next time you hear that phrase. So, people aren't as good as they used to be. We're good folks.
Alright.
From a character trait, that seems to be a strong sense of what? Pride, ego, arrogance. The Greeks, when it comes to tragic characters, have an H word that they use for this. Pride, arrogance,
Hubris.
hubris.
What do you say?
Thought you were going to hummus there for a moment, and we we're going to get chickpeas and.
Hummus.
That's what it is.
As soon as you said it, I'm like,
So arrogance, pride, hubris. Leads to downfall. Did anyone take note of where Red Sammy's barbecue is? It's not Toomsboro. They drive through Toomsboro. That's a bad sign. They also drive by the plantation that has 5 or 6 graves. That's a bad sign when there's mom, dad, 3 kids, and 1 grandma. Ooh, that's bad.
Nice.
Cat is not a person.
Cat rubs up against the misfit.
The cat doesn't get.
Cat finds the good man who's hard to find.
Wait,
It's the misfit.
Mr. King, does the baby get shot too?
You get the sense that that probably happens. Yes.
No
Okay, so the
witnesses.
cat is the only one that survived out of everybody.
Correct.
Nice.
Alright, we're good. Alright, we're good. Yeah!
What's the name of the building?
I'm chat. The tower.
And the tower is just on the outskirts of the city or the town of Timothy.
That's
Which is an odd name for a town. Would be a better name than Pity Sing, probably, for the cat. The sheet that you picked up besides the poem, from this, you have some verses that are coming from the book of Timothy. These are letters that Paul writes in New Testament, and Timothy is helping with the distribution of these. Notice some of the things. I'm not going to read all of them. The second one, he must manage his own household well with all dignity, keeping his children submissive. For if someone does not know how to manage his own household, how will he care for God's church? But if a widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show godliness to their own household and to make some return to their parents, for this is pleasing in the sight of God. Basically, in the letters with Timothy, you have the rules that one needs to follow in order to be a good man. The people within Bailey's family and Bailey himself certainly don't seem to follow the rules needed to be a good man. Hence, a good man is hard to find. So there's already, and we know O'Connor kind of does this religious illusion stuff, symbolism within the course of her works anyway. The town of Timothy is kind of an odd one to have, so you got some connection with these rules to being a good man. Plus, you got a bunch of arrogant people by a tower.
Apple.
What's the story with the Tower of Babel?
This is
Well, like, there were a bunch of people, and then they were like arguing about. I don't know if they were arguing, but they were definitely like arrogant and everything.
They were
Yeah.
a group of people who moved to the city, and they built a city. And the goal of the city was to build a tower to reach God.
Superstructure that's going to go up to heaven.
It's the first skyscraper.
And people have always been looking for the ruins, and the assumption would be it probably would be like a big ramp that would kind of be going up to get the stones. So that's not to build it, but whatever the case may be, build this structure to try to get up to heaven or be on the same level as God. And how does God react to that? Not very well. So what happens to the tower? Down it goes. You know, lightning bolts, whatever you want to kind of think of it. Superstructure gets destroyed. The punishment, and this is what you were getting at, is before there was one tongue, one universal language, and now they have been dispersed and they cannot understand one another. So when a little kid talks, little baby talks, toddler, and we can't understand what he or she says, we go, the kid is babbling. That's where you're getting the etymology of the word. So you have this building here, this tower, where Red Sammy's barbecue, and within the tower, you have all of this arrogance that is taking place. If you're going that grandma is one of those arrogant people, what kind of happens to her by the end of the story?
like my grades. It just goes.
You know, she has been smoked, smited.
Smite.
I like saying smoked. It's not a real word, but it has legs. Yeah, it's not. What we want to look at though tomorrow is, and Justin was alluding to this whole scene with "You're One of My Babies." The closing scene with the misfit is one of those weird ones where I think we're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. So that's going to be our main focal point for tomorrow before we take a look at the essay assignment.
You should have put the shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I actually
Choice like
Uh,
that.